imagine this scenario, and I think this happens to, well, almost everyone listening. You wake up, the morning light is soft, and before you've even had a conscious thought, your feet haven't even hit the floor, and there's this pulse of low-grade anxiety, a feeling that you are already failing, already behind schedule. It's not about the clock, is it?
No, not at all.
It's that internal pressure. It's because the internal role of the achiever, or the productive one, is already awake. It's on the stage of your inner world, pacing and rehearsing.
That moment is such a crucial signal. We spend so much energy pursuing what we call balance, you know?
Right, like it's a destination.
Exactly, like a fixed, serene place between chaos and calm. But if we're constantly inhabiting these roles, maybe balance isn't a state we achieve. Maybe it's a rhythm we discover only when we stop trying to micromanage all the many, many actors in our inner theater.
And that's the core of what we're diving into today. The material suggests this profound reframing of selfhood, that we are not a singular, unified I. We're more of a constellation of fluid, often overlapping and sometimes aggressively contradictory roles.
Yes, the caregiver, the skeptic, the dreamer, the relentless worker.
All at once.
And we want to be clear here. This multiplicity isn't a sign of neurosis or confusion. It is simply how perception organizes itself. So our mission today is to understand the mechanics of this, how the mind selects certain roles to be the figure, making them clear, urgent, compelling.
And how it pushes others into the background.
Yes, where they become soft and indistinct. And critically, what happens to us when that organization breaks down and just gets stuck.
So let's get straight into the engine room of this idea. This is the Gestalt principle in action, right? The relationship between figure and ground.
Absolutely. Think of it visually like one of those images that can be interpreted in two ways. In any given moment, based on your current need or your context, one inner role steps into the focal point. It becomes the figure. Everything else just recedes into the ground.
So when you're focused on a business proposal,
the strategist is the figure, and the part of you that wants to nap or worries about dinner, that's all just background. And that dynamic shifting, that's healthy flow.
But we often seem to just ignore that complexity. Instead of acknowledging the theater, we collapse the whole field into one flat, overwhelming note, like just saying, I am stressed.
And that simplification is a major perceptual trap. When you say, I am stressed, you've lost all the nuance.
Yeah.
The helpful distinction is gone. You mask the reality that perhaps the part of me trying to manage 3 deadlines is running on empty, while the part of me that desperately needs stillness is being, well, yelled at and silenced.
So when we talk about stress, we're often talking about a profound disagreement between our inner parts.
Reduced down to a single debilitating feeling.
Yes. And the danger accelerates when that chosen figure becomes rigid. When one role, let's take the perfect professional, refuses to step down.
It becomes a tyrant.
Right. It ceases to be functional. It distorts the entire field of experience, doesn't it?
It does, because a figure only makes sense against its ground. So if the perfect professional role dominates continuously, it forces the human being needing rest roll deep into the background.
And that suppressed energy doesn't just vanish.
No. This leads us to the problem of the unattended background.
How does that unattended background show up in daily life?
Well, it leaks out. It becomes irritability toward a loved one who did nothing wrong. It turns into chronic tension in your neck and shoulders, or most dramatically, it culminates in those massive, seemingly out of nowhere emotional collapses.
Oh, where a minor trigger sets off a huge reaction.
Exactly. But it wasn't out of nowhere. That was the suppressed ground, starving for acknowledgement, finally breaking through the rigid figure that was holding it down.
I'm thinking of that classic example you mentioned in our reading, the person who prides themselves on being fiercely logical.
That person is exhibiting extreme figure rigidity. They've decided that their core identity is the logical one, and anything that challenges that, sadness, vulnerability, even deep joy, is labeled indulgence or messiness.
So in Gestalt terms, they are actively refusing to let those emotional experiences form a clear figure.
They're pushing them down. They become this unresolved tension.
So they aren't actually eliminating emotion. They're just making it shapeless and corrosive.
Precisely. It sits in their background as this unresolved tension without form. And that tension silently pulls on their energy, making them feel numb, constantly fatigued, and it distorts their perception of reality. They look at others who express emotion and think, why are they so erratic?
Because they can't perceive their own inner field accurately.
So they certainly can't perceive the world clearly. They're stuck in a very lonely perceptual trap.
What's fascinating here is how that flow just freezes up. We're talking about an inner field that should be fluid and shifting.
It should be. The healthy field operates through what we call isomorphism or structural harmony. Think of it like a world-class jazz band.
Thank you.
The instruments shift leadership. The drums might be the figure for a moment, then the saxophone takes the lead and the drums gracefully drop back to become the supportive ground. That's the strategist rising at work and the nurturer rising with a friend. The shift is fluid because the organism trusts itself.
But why does the music stop? Why do we get stuck playing the same single note over and over?
The primary culprit is unfinished business.
Unfinished business.
Or incomplete gestalts. These are unexpressed moments of genuine need from the past, the time a child couldn't cry, the moment an adult was punished for speaking their truth.
So the impulse was there, but it never completed.
Exactly. It's like hitting save halfway through a document.
Yeah.
That unexpressed energy, it doesn't integrate. It just lingers in the background as this constant, low-level static.
And since the mind is naturally oriented toward completion, those incomplete gestalts are constantly pulling on us.
Yes, they hijack the present. They force us to replay old, outdated solutions to current life situations. You might be in a safe, constructive debate, but because the incomplete gestalt of the silenced child is active, you instantly escalate or shut down. You're using a survival strategy that belongs in a different time.
That explains the example of the high achiever who can't relax on vacation. I think that one is so relatable for so many people.
It's highly illustrative of compensation. That achiever role isn't dominant because of pure, joyful ambition. It's perpetually figural because it is compensating for a deep, ancient, emotional void.
It's guarding against something.
It's guarding against the underlying terror. If I stop, if I become still, I will be worthless or abandoned. The high achiever is frozen in time, frantically working to resolve an emotional equation that was set up decades ago. The role is a prison built by fear, just disguised as productivity.
Wow. That really drives home that we often mistake a highly refined survival mechanism for our true identity. And attention is the spotlight on this inner stage, so most people don't consciously choose who gets the light. They're just hijacked by perceptual defaults.
Exactly. The automatic response mechanisms. The critic leaps forward instantly when there's a flicker of uncertainty. The pleaser automatically activates in conflict.
These are just habits.
They're habits wired through constant repetition, and we confuse the habit for the essence. We say, oh, I'm just a worrier, or I'm just a fiery person, treating these patterns as inevitable rather than seeing them as a default setting we forgot we could change.
So the crucial move then must be to step back from that default. And this brings us to what you call the most liberating realization. You are not your figure. You are the field that contains it.
That shift is tectonic. The dominant role, the worrier, the critic, the achiever, is just one temporary possibility emerging from a vast potential. When you realize you are the container, you gain the ability to reorganize your perception.
So instead of, I'm overwhelmed by worry,
you can observe, here's the worrier again. Is this moment truly calling for worry, or is the actual need here for strategic planning, or maybe even for radical rest?
That pause creates the space for what you call insight, or Einsicht. And you've made a strong distinction that this isn't just an intellectual understanding.
It's not. Einsicht is a sudden, fundamental reorganization of the perceptual field. It's not thinking harder, it's seeing differently.
Right.
Like when you suddenly start seeing the black shapes in the Rubin vase illustration, and with just a subtle shift, you see the white faces. The data didn't change, but your perception did.
So in the inner world, insight happens when a suppressed role finally gets the space to emerge as figure.
And the whole inner structure just clicks into place with this profound sense of relief.
That clicks into the idea of harmony. It's not about maintaining some fixed equilibrium, which is static and impossible. It's about dynamic completion.
Dynamic completion is the key. It means allowing each role to emerge fully when it's needed, express its impulse, and then gracefully return to ground, without suppression or domination. It's a flow.
It's a continuous process. A moment of intense focus at work should be followed by a moment of complete collapse into rest. That dynamic pulse is health.
So if we were to identify the single biggest interference that prevents this dynamic flow, what would it be?
It is identification. Identification is the collapse of the self. When we rigidly define ourselves as one role, I am the thinker, we immediately cut off access to vital parts of the field: physical sensation, intuition, emotion.
If I am the thinker, I can't be the feeler.
Right. If I am the helper, I cannot receive help. Identification is brittle and creates immense unnecessary conflict.
So the practice is de-identification. It's remembering, I am not this role, I contain it.
Precisely. And when that realization truly dawns, something profound happens. The roles stop fighting for dominance. They stop needing to prove their worth.
They're just held.
They're simply held, contained within the embrace of a larger awareness. The internal climate shifts from a battleground to a stage. That sounds like a radical philosophical shift. The moment we stop trying to actively find balance, the quality of presence we cultivate allows balance to simply find us. It's about developing a quality of being that can hold the inner tension without needing to immediately resolve or fix it.
And this leads us to the radical question that can dismantle the entire project of self-management. Who is the one who notices? When you observe the worrier, or you observe the achiever, or you observe the critic, who is you doing the observing, that you isn't another role you can name. It's not the wise observer or the harmonious one.
Because the moment you try to name the perceiver, you've turned the stage itself into another actor.
You have missed the point entirely.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the search for stability, it reveals the core paradox. The search for balance is often in itself an imbalance.
Oh, so.
It assumes that flux and contradiction and being pulled in multiple directions are flaws that must be corrected, but that multiplicity and tension are the very fabric of dynamic consciousness.
It reminds me of the analogy of a forest. The forest ecosystem isn't balanced by a single perfectly still tree.
No.
It thrives because of dynamic tension growth, decay, competition, symbiosis. Your inner world is that forest.
That's a perfect analogy. And it leads to the ultimate conclusion of this Gestalt lens. We don't need to manage the roles or force them into some artificial hierarchy. We need to trust the field.
Trust the field.
Which is what we call organismic self-regulation. The organism knows how to heal, how to grow, and how to organize itself fluidly, provided we stop interfering with the process.
That's a massive surrender, though. Trusting that internal flow.
Yeah.
But how do you trust the field when the critic is yelling so loudly?
You trust the truth behind the messenger. Every single role, even the most seemingly destructive ones, the critic, the pleaser, the self-saboteur, is actually a distorted expression of love.
Oh.
They are all desperately trying to serve a purpose, usually a protective one rooted in the past. The inner war ends when we stop treating them as enemies and start seeing them as messengers, carrying information we once couldn't afford to hear.
So they are not flaws, they are information. That's a powerful reframing.
So the ultimate invitation is not to seek a state of static balance, but to embody the tension. Harmony is not the absence of opposites. It's the art of holding those opposites. Strength and fragility, achiever and dreamer simultaneously without collapsing the whole structure.
And now, a final, quiet provocation for you to take into your next moment of perceived conflict. If you are not the roles, and you're not even the awareness of the roles, then what is the true nature of what remains?
The answer won't arrive as a clever concept you can write down. It will reveal itself in the next moment you pause and feel the silence that exists beneath all the noise of your inner actors. In that silence, the field reorganizes itself entirely, not because you fixed it, but because you finally stopped interfering with the larger, quieter awareness that has been holding the stage all along.